What's up, guys? Zaki-san here with another video for you guys, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to have a LUCCI and a BONNEY game playing in the background while I just talk to you guys a little bit about a topic that's been a little bit hot in our community lately. And it's about getting coaching in the One Piece card game. I don't really understand why it's become such a hot topic. I think that, people should be free to charge what they want if people are paying, and I think people should be free to spend their money however they want if they find value in what they're obtaining. So, and I think that's kind of where the disconnect is. I think the people who think getting coaching in a card game is a little silly kind of look down and frown upon the whole thing, because to them they're just trying to have fun and play at locals, and if they happen to go to a regional and do well, then they kind of just take it as serious as fate kind of rolls it out for them. But then there's some people who are much more competitive than that, who are probably playing because their competitive itch is satisfied through this card game, right? Like for me, for example, I was playing sports since I was young. I played basketball all throughout my childhood and my college years. I mean, I wasn't playing college basketball, but I was playing like recreational college basketball, and I had a lot of fun being competitive and busting my ass and just trying to play well and be aggressive, be explosive, and it's an itch, like it's satisfying to put in the work and then compete up against other people and be the winner, right? But then there's other people, like my sister, for example. She's the most uncompetitive person in the world. Like the moment something becomes competitive, she just shuts down. It's not fun for her. It ruins the fun for her. So I understand both sides of the coin. There are some people who just want to play One Piece at locals or go to a regional and just have fun because they love the game, they love the IP, they love One Piece, and it's just a good time. It's a good environment. It's supposed to be like a very welcoming community. And then but like on the other side of the coin, there are people who like I have become the the type of person who doesn't just play One Piece for fun, and actually, like, the fun in One Piece is me playing it as competitively as I can, and aiming, genuinely aiming towards being the best player of a certain deck in the entire game, right? Like, for example, like, my goal is to be the best Blackbeard. If I ever switch decks, my goal is going to be the best, to aim to be the best green purple Luffy, for example, right? Like that's what my goal is, and that's what my fun is that pursuit of excellence, right? Now, if you're that type of person who just wants to be casual, more power to you. You know what I mean? Like, go to your locals and have fun, play with your friends, come to a regional, have a good time, don't stress the record, whatever it is. That's fine. But then for those people who want to take the next step and kind of take it more seriously and get a shot at topping a regional, get a shot at going to nationals, I 100% recommend coaching to that individual. Um, I'm sure there are people out there who are very intuitive learners who can just pick up this game and kind of see all the layers and the ins and outs of value in play, and like see future turns and see two turns ahead and do that all on their own. Or maybe you just have a like-minded, testing group where you guys can foster that within each other and make strides together in figuring it out, and that's great too. But even then, right, I still think that seeking coaching is extremely efficient and valuable use of your time, right? For example, my testing group is pretty small, and it's steadily growing, and I'm very grateful for that. But I encourage, you know, my group to seek coaching because we're only as good as the collective, right? So if I want Dofi practice, if I want to verse Dofi and get practice against Dofi, it's a disservice to myself if I'm preparing for Dallas, regionals, or whatever big tournament. It's a disservice to myself to verse my friend if he's not a highly competent Dofi, right? Because I don't know whether or not he's making the best plays. So if I start to beat him, or Purple Luffy, or Shanks, whatever the matchup is, it doesn't matter. If I beat person A, 8 out of 10 times, and I start to build confidence, and I start to build a plan, a game plan against that matchup around, person A, who doesn't know how to play the deck efficiently and doesn't understand the matchup also, for example, I'm doing a disservice to myself because now I have false confidence. Because on the day of the regional, I'll go up against person B, who is extremely competent in the deck and really understands the matchup, who will play it super efficiently in a different way than my testing partner, and then I'll get, basically shocked and not know or not understand why I'm getting outplayed every step of the way, right? So coaching allows everyone in the group to excel because we're each kind of raising each other's standards. Now, coaching helps you kind of bridge the gap, right? And I talk about this often. I think a lot of people who are jumping out of the local scene into a competitive scene don't acknowledge that there is a gap between someone who consistently tops locals and someone who consistently tops regionals, right? There's a huge gap that exists there. And I think the first step in getting, improving exponentially in this game, or in anything actually, is to acknowledge that you don't know what you don't know, right? You just don't. You're ignorant to it. Now the problem of that ignorance comes if you're ignorant about your ignorance, right? If your ignorance is compounded, that's where the problem comes in. Because again, then you'll find yourself in those situations where you're across the table from someone at a regional, and you think that it's a good matchup for you, but then this person plays it totally different than what you're used to, and then you just find yourself in a losing position where you could have avoided that had you gone and sought coaching in that matchup from a player that plays X deck to a high level and understands the matchup and can play it at that caliber, and now you are getting practice the way you could expect your opponent to play it at a big event, right? So that's one aspect of it that's very important, right? But also, everyone, even the top players, especially when they pick up a new deck, they're going to make mistakes, right? Like, everybody makes mistakes. The way this game works is, it's not like chess where both players start with the same exact pieces and every game starts the exact same way, right? In One Piece, both players have a deck that is basically blind to the other person. You have an idea of what that leader plays in their deck, but you can't be 100% sure unless it's open deck list and Top Cut, right? So there's always this idea, and also since it's And also, since it's a 50 card deck, you don't know what your opponent draws and what they're missing. When they search, you don't know what they're bottom decking, etc. So in one piece, there's a very real chance that, you know, every game is winnable, but there's no match that you can be sure that you'll win, right? Because you don't have that foresight. So I can make a play on turn 3 that I think will be strong based off of what I assume my opponent's going to do on their next turn, and then they do something totally different. And now my turn was suboptimal, right? But you can't play around everything. So you have to basically figure out what is the worst thing that my opponent can do against me, in terms of like what will piss me off the most, what will put me in a bad spot, and now is it feasible for me to play around that, or is it very unlikely that that's what he's going to do? And then you have to calculate what the best play you can make is around what you think your opponent is going to do in response, if that makes sense. Now, with that said, again, every player with that in mind can and will make mistakes, no matter how high caliber you are. I'm sure Jonas and Impact and Jackson, they play every day, and I'm sure they're not playing every game flawlessly. It's almost impossible. It's impossible. You can never really know. You can play it, highly precise and calculative, but you never really know for sure what your opponent's going to do, and you don't know because hindsight is 20/20, right? and with that said, at our level, right, I'm not a top player yet. Sure, I top 64 at Nats, but to me that wasn't high enough, right? I wanted to make day 2. But point is for us average players, or we're definitely making mistakes, and we could rewatch a game and say, oh, what could I have done differently? That to me was I played it well. There's nothing I could have done differently. Everything I could have done differently was with hindsight in mind. But if my coach watches that video in a different perspective, in their perspective, in a heightened perspective, because they're more experienced, and they kind of visualize the game through extra layers that I might not be 100% attuned to, they'll be able to tell me, oh, you lost this game because turn 1 you did X instead of Y. Had you done Y, you would have had a little bit more of an advantage throughout the rest of the game. And I kid you not, you guys know I've gotten coaching from Flesh, one of the European champions. And one of my coaching sessions, we were going over a Black Yellow Luffy game, and mind you, this is when I was still figuring it out and early on in my growth as a player, right? I played Flampe turn 1 as Black Yellow Luffy, and I kid you not, every turn from then, Flesh would drill it into my mind and say, why the hell did you play Flampe turn 1? If you didn't play Flampe turn 1, you would have been in a much better position. Turn 3, he would say the same thing. See, if you didn't play Flampe turn 1, you would be in a much better position. Turn 4. Every turn of the game, he would go back to, you're losing this game because you made one simple mistake on turn 1, and it affected the rest of the game. Right? And now, after having experience, I can go back and watch videos of me playing and say, holy crap, I made a mistake on turn 1. As a matter of fact, I think one of my videos on YouTube, we talk about how I drew .Q and I didn't play it, and that was the number 1 card I needed to draw. It happens. And then these little mistakes will lead to a huge deficit, will lead you falling behind, that will basically snowball in your opponent's favor, and then you lose because you made one mistake on turn 1. And now if that can happen turn 1, it could also happen on any other turn of the game, right? It could be as simple as countering a swing that you should have just took, or whatever it is, right? Or swinging at a body to bait a card out of their hand instead of swinging at life. There's so many little intricacies in this game that you might, by habit, just be overlooking, and the coach will basically gaslight it for you. A coach will, have a unbiased mind and see it from their own perspective, and you'll start to kind of pick up where your weaknesses are. And you can't do that if you're ignorant. You can't do that if you're ignorant about your ignorance, right? So I'm constantly open to criticism. I want people to give me suggestions of how I can play a game differently, X, Y, and Z, right? So the short of it, right, is yes, coaching might not be an absolute necessity, right? But most of us have a life outside of One Piece. Most of us are in school or, have a career, have a family, have other obligations that take us away from this game. So paying X amount of money for a coach, yeah, you're spending whatever amount of money for an hour and a half with somebody to tell you how to play this silly game better, but it's going to save you hours of testing with your friends or testing by yourself on the sim of time, because instead of you having to figure out where your mistakes are yourself, your coach will iron it out with you and for you. So if you have the money to spend on your hobby, something that you're passionate about, and you really want to get better, I 100%, there's nothing wrong with getting coaching. In fact, you should. It makes logical sense. It's efficient for you to get coaching. Now, caveat to that, I think it's a lot more worth getting coaching if you're getting it on a consistent basis. So if you can get a coaching session or two every week with the same coach for a month straight, look, I'll be shocked. Honestly, it's your fault if you don't get better from that. Either you're not applying the knowledge properly, you're not recording your sessions and reviewing and trying to drill it and install it into your mind of what you need to improve on, or you've just overcommitted into a coach that's just not doing it for you. So with that said, one thing I suggest is you should definitely try a coach. Try a coach that is within your means, right? Like Flesh, I don't know what his pricing is going to be after Worlds, but he's taking a break until after Worlds. But before Worlds, his coaching sessions were like $50 for like an hour, and he's very generous with his time. So sometimes it'll bleed over an hour. Enigma is like $40 an hour. There's people out there who aren't charging $100, $200 like some of these top players, and you can just try a session, see what you get out of it, see if you vibe with the coach, and if you do, then book another session. If you don't, great. Yeah, you lost $40, $50, you lost an hour. I'm sure you picked one or two things up, but then you can cross that coach off and find another coach, right? It's just like personal training. It's just like, anything outside of this world that's not One Piece. It's, sometimes you just got to give a professional a shot to see if you like their services, and if you don't, then you just move on to the next one and you try another one until you find the one that clicks. Now look, when it comes to those more expensive coaches, I think there's a way to use that to your advantage, right? Because it's definitely hard to get one coaching session a week if the coach is Jonas charging $100 a session, or Impact charging like $200 for 2 hours or something like that. Now I've gotten coaching from Jonas, and I'm interested in getting another session with Jonas. But when I go to those higher caliber coaches, and I really, I don't even want to say that because Flesh is a great coach. Enigma, they're both great coaches, right? But when it comes to those more expensive coaches, those niche coaches, like if you want Dofi coaching, like yeah, I imagine you know Jonas and Impact could probably do you good, right? Now, I would go to them with like specific issues, like, oh, I want help as Dofi into X matchup, or I have a problem, when I'm in X situation, I don't know what I should do, or I have this video where I feel like I should have won, but I made a bad decision and I don't understand how to see what else I could have done. And then you go to them with those specific questions and they'll give you specific answers that will leave you satisfied, right? But if you're looking for like general fundamentals or generally trying to pick up a deck and like gradually chip away at mastering that deck, then yeah, maybe you want to find like a cheaper coach and get like weekly coaching and constantly like have that coach kind of get invested in your growth. I think that what Josh Graham has going is pretty nice, right? Like you can spend $200 a month and you get like what, one coaching session or two coaching sessions plus like group coaching sessions, and like yeah, it's a hefty price, but I think overall it ends up being worth it if that's for you. You know what I mean? It ends up being worth it if you're short on it ends up being worth it if you're short on time and you want to streamline your progress and your improvement. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, back to the masterclass thing. Like, if you want to pick up Shanks, and if you're a new player coming to the game and you want to pick up Shanks, what is it, $50? No, it's like $35. Yeah, spend $35. Listen to Impact talk for 3 hours and pick up everything you need to know to start playing that deck decently. You know what I mean? Like, why not? Yeah, if you're an experienced player, probably not worth getting that masterclass. You know what I mean? Like you probably know most of it, but like I don't know. Like it to me, they're doing a good service. You know what I mean? They're providing value to the community and allowing the community to grow and raise its standards. So I appreciate the people who are doing this work. Um, is coaching for everyone? No, absolutely not. But if you think you're one of those people who want to really see how far or how big that gap is between where you are and like being a consistently top player, yeah, man, get coaching.